The Ballon d'Or is happening very soon, and although the winner has been leaked by many trusted sources, I still thought it would be a good idea to rank all 30 nominees from worst to best. I'm going to be basing this purely off of how well they performed last season. I'm not interested in how many trophies they won or how well their team did, only how well they played as an individual. And if you're wondering about why I'm not bothered about trophies, it's because the best players aren't always on the winning teams. Marcus Asensio and Lucas Vazquez have won several Champions Leagues, but that doesn't make them great players. So to rank these players based on how good they are individually, I'm not going to be taking into account trophies. I'd also just like to say that I haven't watched every game in every league, so I don't know the whole story. I'm just basing this off of what I've heard, what I've seen, and the stats. So I apologise if there is some unconscious bias towards, say, the Premier League players because I've seen them play more. I can't really control that. Now, before we get started with this ranking, I'd just like to recommend that you subscribe to the channel because it's completely free and you can always unsubscribe later. But with that being said, let's get started with my ranking of the 30 Ballon d'Or nominees. 30th, Hakan Çalhanoğlu. Hopefully I've pronounced that right. Çalhanoğlu had a great season at Inter Milan, helping them to win Serie A as one of their best playmaking midfielders. He was playing in a slightly deeper role this year, and that suited him really well. With that being said, other players on this list did have more impressive seasons, and his performances at the Euros weren't great. He got himself suspended for Turkey's last 16 match against Austria. Also, since I'm a big fan of AC Milan, I had to put that snake in last place. 29th, Vitinha. Last season, Vitinha proved himself as one of the best midfielders in Ligue 1. His passing and attacking creativity helped PSG to control games, and he was a crucial part of their league win. Vitinha's performances for Portugal were also impressive. With that being said, he wasn't really tested enough on the biggest stages, and didn't do anything brilliant enough to earn him a spot higher than 29th. 28th. The Ukrainian forward had a great season at Girona, as he helped them to qualify for the Champions League by finishing third in La Liga. He scored 24 goals in the league, registering 8 assists, but compared to other players on this list who played in the more high-level competitions like the Champions League, he didn't really do enough. Dovbyk was also disappointing at the Euros, where he failed to register a single goal contribution as Ukraine finished bottom of Group E. 27th, Valverde. I've always thought of Valverde as a very underrated player. He's got great technique, a really good long shot, and he always seems to make the right decisions. This season he performs really well for Real Madrid and Uruguay, but compared to other players on this list, he didn't really do enough. He rarely stood out as the best player on the team, and while he is consistently good, he's not quite good enough to finish anywhere higher than 27th. 26th, Lookman. Ademola Lookman scored a hat-trick in the Europa League final, and that's the main reason he's been nominated here. He was pretty good for Atalanta for the rest of the season, but that Europa League final is the reason he's been nominated. Lookman did also reach the AFCON final with Nigeria, and overall, for his contributions for both his country and his club in Europe, I thought it was right to put him at 26th. 25th, Rice. Rice signed for Arsenal for over £100 million last season, and he became a crucial player at the heart of their midfield. He also played a key role for England as they reached the final of the Euros. However, Rice has been criticised for not being progressive enough. Lots of sideways and backwards passes, but not that much being created. I also think there were more important players for both Arsenal and England, so despite a good season, I'm going to have to place Rice at 25th. 24th, Diaz. Diaz didn't have his best season for Manchester City last year. He started 30 games in the league, but he wasn't quite the player he was the year before when he won the treble. At that point, he was arguably the best defender in the world, but now, I'd say he's slightly behind a few others. With that being said, he was still one of the best defenders in the Premier League last season, and he's good at making tackles and dealing with 1v1 situations. Diaz was still one of Manchester City's most important players last year, and while some people have been questioning his nomination, I still think for his individual performances, even at the Euros where he played well for Portugal alongside Pepe, Diaz deserves to be in 24th place. 23rd, Kroos. This was Kroos' final season in football, and he played very well for Real Madrid and Germany. He is getting a bit older now, and his fitness isn't quite where it was, but playing a more deeper role this year, I still thought he was very impressive. He was a big reason why Germany were one of the best teams in the Euros, and why Real Madrid won the Champions League. I don't think he was the best midfielder in either of those teams, but he did perform well, particularly in the Champions League final. For that reason, he deserves 23rd place. 22nd, Xhaka. Xhaka played a key role in Bayer Leverkusen's unbeaten Bundesliga season, and his tough tackling and great passing helped to control games. I thought he performed exceptionally for Switzerland at the Euros, particularly in that game against Italy where he got man of the match. He definitely had a great season, but I thought the players above did do slightly better. 21st, Grimaldo. I don't think people realise just how good Grimaldo was last season. He was one of the best left-backs in the world, and despite being dropped for Spain behind Marc Cucurella, his performances in the Bundesliga and the Europa League for Bayer Leverkusen boost him up to 21st place. Grimaldo scored 10 goals and registered 15 assists in the Bundesliga, with a further 2 goals and 4 assists in the Europa League. And I haven't heard anyone complaining about his defending either, so you can't really ask for much more from a fullback. Oh, and by the way, for the last 4 candidates, I put out a poll to see what you guys thought. I was struggling to decide which order to put them in, but after seeing what you guys thought, I had a rethink and decided you were all wrong and went with my own order, so sorry about that. 20th, Williams. Nico Williams was impressive for Athletic Bilbao last season, but the main reason he's been nominated here is for his performances internationally. At the Euros with Spain, Williams was a nightmare for defenders. He scored 2 goals and got 1 assist, but his general attacking play really helped to unlock defences. I did find Nico Williams quite difficult to place here because I wasn't sure how much of a bearing international football should have on the overall ranking. Where should players who did really well in the Euros or Copa America but not so well for their clubs finish on this list? I'm not sure, so I decided to put some of Spain's best players around this mid-table bit, because when you look at their season as a whole, they weren't the best players in the world, but at the Euros, they performed excellently. 19th, Yamal. It's crazy to think that last season Yamal was only 16 years old, and he was still one of the best players in both La Liga and the Euros. He scored 5 goals and got 7 assists in La Liga last season, but the main reason he's here is for his Euro performances. He scored 1 goal and registered 4 assists, but that goal was a crucial one to knock France out and send Spain into the final. Yamal has already proven himself as one of the world's best right wingers, and because of his fantastic Euro performances, he deserves 19th place. 18th, Olmo. Like Yamal and Williams, Olmo performed exceptionally well at Euro 2024 with Spain. He came into the team after Pedri's injury and ended up scoring 3 goals and getting 2 assists. Olmo was also great for RB Leipzig. For those reasons, I've decided to place Olmo at 18th. 17th, Odegaard. Odegaard might not have won anything this season, but he scored 8 goals and got 10 assists in the Premier League, and he is such a leader for Arsenal. Everything that they do goes through him. Norway didn't qualify for the Euros, so he didn't really do anything internationally, but because Odegaard is so important to Arsenal, I've decided to put him in 17th. 16th, Emiliano Martinez. As the only goalkeeper on this list, Martinez was very difficult to place. He had a good season with Aston Villa, helping them to qualify for the Champions League and performing very well in some big important games against the likes of Arsenal and Man City. He also performed well in the Europa Conference League, helping Aston Villa to reach the semi-finals, and the Copa America, where he contributed to Argentina's victory. He was a bit error-prone at times in the Premier League, but overall I think he had a good season. Again, I'm not sure how really to compare goalkeepers to outfield players, and I don't actually think Martinez was the best goalkeeper this year, so I decided to put him 16th, but this is one that I'm really not sure about. Let me know in the comments where you'd rank him. 15th, Mbappe. Now this might seem low for Mbappe's standards, but this season has not been his best. The French forward scored 27 goals in 29 Ligue 1 appearances, but Ligue 1 is not the best league in the world. In the Champions League, he underperformed in big games against Dortmund and Barcelona. Mbappe was also disappointing in the Euros despite scoring 1 goal and getting 2 assists, because outside of a penalty and a couple of good crosses, he didn't really contribute that much at all. With that being said, Mbappe's pace and skill does add something to the team no matter what, and his movement out wide and in the box is fantastic. But considering how well other players on this list did, I couldn't put Mbappe any higher than 15th. 14th, Hummels. I think Mats Hummels was one of the most underrated defenders in the world last season. He had the most tackles and the most ball recoveries out of anyone in the Champions League. He performs exceptionally well in big games like the Klassiker and the Champions League final second leg against PSG, where he got man of the match. Hummels was also great at passing. We saw a really good ball to Adeyemi in the Champions League final, and from all the games that I watched from him, he was just outstanding. I'm actually shocked that he wasn't called up to the German national team for the Euros. He might not have had such high standards in the general league matches. Dortmund finished 5th in the Bundesliga, which is quite low for someone who was nominated for the Ballon d'Or. Still, Hummels was very good in the Champions League, particularly last season, so I had to put him in a high position. 13th, Wirtz. I would argue he was Bayer Leverkusen's most important player as they won the Bundesliga unbeaten. He got 20 goals and 20 assists in all competitions last year, and that includes his 2 goals in the Euros, where although he was dropped for Germany, he still had a significant impact. Plus, he wouldn't have been dropped had it not been for Jamal Musiala playing in the same position. Musiala is a fantastic player, and I'm surprised that he wasn't nominated for the Ballon d'Or. I think it's because Bayern Munich didn't win a trophy, but anyway, I've decided to put Wirtz in 13th place. 12th, Carvajal. Carvajal won both the Champions League and the Euros last season, but that's not why he's here. His contribution in big games against the likes of Croatia and Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final really helped his teams to get over the line. He was also defensively solid throughout the whole season, and although I'm not a fan of his playstyle, he's a nasty defender who likes to dive and foul. You can't really deny that he was the best fullback last year. 11th, Saka. Bukayo Saka had yet another brilliant season. For Arsenal, he scored 20 goals and registered 14 assists, yet again proving himself to be one of their most threatening attacking players. He also got a goal and an assist for his country at the Euros, and performed particularly well in that game against Switzerland. I would even argue that Saka was the best right winger in the world last season, and that's why he's in 11th place. He's such a consistent player as well, very rarely underperforming. 10th, Foden. Foden won the Premier League Player of the Year award last season, and he played a huge part in Manchester City's title win. His movement, his technique, and his long shots helped him to get 27 goals and 12 assists. And when Kevin De Bruyne was out injured, it was Phil Foden who came up with the moments of magic to help win Manchester City games. For England, however, Foden was disappointing. He didn't get a single goal contribution in all 7 games, and besides that one half against the Netherlands in the semi-finals, he didn't really have any impact at all. Still, for his performances in the Premier League and the Champions League, Foden does deserve a spot in the top 10. 9th, Martinez. Lautaro Martinez scored 24 goals in Serie A and 5 goals in Copa America, making him the top scorer in both competitions. That's very impressive, but Serie A isn't the best league and he did only score 2 in the Champions League. Martinez's performances in Italy were incredible though, and he deserves a lot of credit for what he did internationally with Argentina. So while I couldn't put him right up there with the best players, Martinez does deserve 9th place for his goal scoring with Inter and Argentina. 8th, Haaland. With 38 goals and 5 assists for Man City, Haaland had another fantastic goal scoring season. He wasn't quite as good as he was last year, but the Norwegian forward still displayed incredible finishing and movement in the box. He might be playing in a team managed by Pep where he gets lots of chances, but players like Aguero and Jesus in the past never scored that many goals. And while Haaland did tend to disappear in the big games like in the Champions League against Real Madrid and in the Premier League against Arsenal, there's no doubt that he's a world-class player, and his numbers last season prove that. 7th, Rudiger. I think Rudiger is very underrated. He's a strong, aggressive defender that tends to make the right decisions on and off the ball. He dealt with Haaland excellently in the Champions League, and performed well at the Euros with Germany. I think he's one of Real Madrid's most important players, and without him, they would have conceded a lot more goals. 6th, Saliba. Saliba is one of my favourite players because he's so calm and composed at the back and always seems to make the right decisions. He's tall, fast, strong, very good at tackling, and without him, Arsenal look like a far weaker team. Like Rudiger, he was able to keep the best strikers like Haaland at bay, and his partnership with Gabriel is one of the best in the world. Saliba was also a standout performer with France at the Euros, and his defending was a big reason why France only conceded 3 goals at that tournament. 5th, Palmer. Palmer got more goal contributions in the Premier League than any other player, with 22 goals and 11 assists. And he did that in the Chelsea team that finished 6th, and if it wasn't for him, they would have finished a lot lower. There were some games where Cole Palmer was by far the best player on the pitch, and he completely turned around Chelsea's season. Of course, Chelsea weren't in Europe, so Palmer didn't really have the chance to prove himself in the Champions League or Europa League, but he did score in the Euro final, and if he'd been playing in that whole tournament, who knows what would have happened. All I can say is that whenever he was on the pitch, his team looked a lot better. I still don't think people realise how good Palmer was last season, especially since he only really came into the team after a couple of months. To get those numbers in such a struggling team and such a tough league is extremely impressive, and that's why Palmer deserves a spot in the top 5. 4th, Vinicius Jr. When I started making this list, I expected Vinicius to be a little bit higher. If you didn't know, he's been leaked to win the Ballon d'Or this year, and I can see why. He's a very skillful player, he's fast, and he's one of Real Madrid's main goal threats, but not the biggest goal threat. There is another player that got more goal contributions within Real Madrid. He turns up in the big games like the Champions League final, and scored 24 goals with 11 assists. However, Vinicius didn't perform that well internationally with Brazil. They went out in the quarterfinals of the Copa America against Uruguay, and Vinicius didn't have the impact he was expected to. However, for his performances for Real Madrid, Vinicius deserves 4th place. Third, Kane. Harry Kane was incredible for Bayern Munich last season. His 44 goals and 12 assists might not have been enough for them to win the Bundesliga, but those numbers are better than anyone else's in the big 5 leagues. And most German football fans will tell you that he's been incredible. Kane's finishing and movement within the box is unmatched by anyone in world football besides maybe Haaland. But this season, Kane outscores and outperformed him. Even in a struggling Bayern team, he is able to score a crazy amount of goals. Having said that, some people were critical of his Euro performances. He seemed slow at times, didn't seem to want to press, and kept dropping back into midfield. But even then, he still scored 3 goals, making him the joint Euro top scorer. Kane just keeps on scoring goals, and that's why I had to put him in the top 3. Second, Bellingham. Jude Bellingham was Real Madrid's best player last season. He scored 22 goals and got 13 assists as a midfield player. Those are some incredible numbers. Last season, Bellingham played a more attacking midfield role as someone who would crash into the box late and finish off chances. But that's not to say he didn't help in the midfield, keeping the ball, dominating the games. He even made lots of defensive contributions. At the start of last season, Bellingham was absolutely unstoppable, and while he didn't do as well towards the end of this season, he still got an assist in the Champions League final and scored a crucial goal in the Euro last 16s to prevent England from going out against Slovakia in the last minute. That proves that he turns up in the big moments, and he's had quite a few goals after the 90th minute. But despite all that, I couldn't put Bellingham at number 1. First, Rodri. In my opinion, Rodri is by far the best player in the world. In fact, he's even better than Busquets ever was. You see, Manchester City are either the best or the second best team in the world. And without Rodri, they are so much worse, and the stats prove it. In the Premier League, they get 2.37 points per game with Rodri in the team, but only 1.9 points per game without him. That is a huge difference. And it's because he's the glue that holds the entire team together, and it's the same for Spain. He was so important in helping them to transition, and his positioning, passing, everything is almost impeccable. There's a reason why Rodri basically doesn't lose football matches, and it's because he is an incredible player. And that's why he deserves the 2024 Ballon d'Or. His positioning, tackling, distribution, and reading of the game is second to none. And that's my ranking done. Like little rhyme there, yeah, epic rhyme. Yeah, no, okay, sorry. Please don't unsubscribe. In fact, you should subscribe, because the worst case scenario is that you just unsubscribe later. Anyway, with that being said, just before we end, I have a small announcement to make, and I have made this before, but it didn't get many views, so I'm going to put it in this video. A few months ago, I hosted a football kit design competition, and I've decided I'm going to do another one. It'll be done on my community post tab, and all you have to do to enter is design a football shirt for a team that's not in one of the big 5 leagues. Basically, I want to see kits from teams that we don't normally see. Now, there are many ways that you can design football kits, and the main one is using FIFA Kit Creator. All you need to do is make an account, and there are many tools there that you can use for free to make yourself a good looking design. Or you could just describe a kit in the comments, and then I'll make it for you. If you want to send me a link to your kit, then you can message me on FIFA Kit Creator. My account is in the description. I also put some helpful videos in there on how to design football kits, so make sure you click those if you're interested in entering. The deadline to enter is 2 weeks from now, so you've got plenty of time to make yourself a good kit. And with that announcement out of the way, thanks again for watching, and I will see you later. Also, make sure to subscribe because it's completely free, and the worst case scenario is that you just unsubscribe later. Anyway, the video's about to end now, so bye.